You work for people like me. The sentence leaves Caroline Preston's mouth with the same lazy confidence she uses to order a coffee she will not finish. She does not look up from her phone when she says it. Her designer heel taps once against the polished floor of the Providence Municipal Court, as if the building itself is late for her schedule. What if 3 careless words could cost someone $50,000 in 30 days of their life? That is the question hanging in the air, even if no one has spoken it aloud yet. It hums underneath the fluorescent lights, beneath the shuffle of papers and the muted coughs from the gallery. Judge Frank Caprio freezes mid-signature. 73 years old, decades on the bench, he has heard pleading, rage, panic, fake tears, real tears. Entitled defendants are nothing new. Yet the way Caroline drops the line, like throwing a coin at a valet, lands differently. She does not even grant him the courtesy of eye contact. To her, the robe and bench are just another service counter. "Miss Preston," he says, voice calm, almost mild, "would you repeat that?" She sighs, finally flicking her eyes up as if dragged from something important. "I said, you work for people like me. My family pays more in property tax every quarter than this place spends in a year. So can we move this along? I have a facial at 2. The gallery goes silent. A bailiff shifts his weight, the court reporter's fingers lift from the keys, and even the buzzing light over the back row seems louder. Everyone feels it at once, the invisible line she has just stepped over and ground into the floor with the heel of her shoe. Caroline is 22, wrapped in the comfortable armor of someone who has never heard the word no without a check following close behind. Her bag costs more than most cars parked outside. Her bracelet could pay a year of rent for half the people in this room. She knows it, and she wants them to know she knows it. What she does not know is that her name did not surprise Judge Caprio this morning. 6 weeks earlier, he had seen it appear on a routine docket list beside the phrase, "speeding, school zone." On paper, it was nothing special. 37 miles per hour in a 25, technically outside the posted school time by a few minutes. Normally, it would have been a quick fine, a gentle lecture, and a forgettable exit. Instead, something about the combination of the last name Preston and the note prior contacts had made him pause. He had asked the clerk for an unusual favor. "Pull everything we have on her," he had said. "Every citation, every dismissal, every complaint that mentions this address." The folder that arrived on his desk had been thick enough to bow. As he placed his hand on it that morning, he had felt the familiar weight of a decision only a judge can make. To treat this like another small case, or to finally follow the pattern wherever it led. Back in the courtroom, he lets a heartbeat of silence pass. Then he sets his pen down with a soft, deliberate click. "Miss Preston," he repeats, "you have made a common mistake." She arches a brow. "Which is?" "You believe taxes buy ownership. They do not. You are correct that this court is funded by people like you, but I do not work for you. I work for justice." He leans forward just enough that she can see the lines around his eyes, the years spent listening to stories like hers and worse than hers. And justice does not check your spa schedule before it speaks. There's a flicker in her expression, a brief crack in the perfect surface. It is gone almost instantly, replaced by the practiced smirk of someone used to watching adults back down when the word lawyer enters the conversation. Before Judge Caprio opens the folder that could change the next 30 days of her life, there is something the viewer outside this room needs to do. If you want to see exactly how 3 words explode into a full dismantling of privilege, subscribe now and hit like, because what is about to unfold is not a simple ticket hearing. It is a slow, methodical demolition of the idea that money can buy a person. "Let us begin," he says, fingers resting on the edge of the file. "This is not just about one afternoon in a school zone, Miss Preston. It is about a pattern." Caroline's lawyer, Mitchell Reeves, adjusts his tie as if the silk might shield him from the tension in the room. He is used to this court, to smiling through minor infractions and walking clients out with barely a scratch. Today was supposed to be one of those days. "Your Honor," he begins smoothly, "this is a minor speeding matter involving a young woman with no serious record. We should not inflate a simple." The sound of a folder opening cuts him off more effectively than any shouted objection. Judge Caprio does not raise his voice. He simply lifts the first stack of pages and lets their thickness speak. 47, he says. That is how many citations appear under Miss Preston's name in the last 2 years. Mitchell blinks once. Caroline's heel stops tapping. That number cannot be accurate, the lawyer says, a beat too late. I thought the same at first, Caprio replies. Then I looked closer. Many of them vanished after what is listed as administrative review. Funny thing, timing. A ticket goes in, a phone call comes from a line traced to City Hall, and within minutes, the citation disappears. He flips one page toward the defense table, letting the highlighted times and dates face them. Month after month, call after call, it paints a very expensive picture. Caroline feels heat rise in her face. That is how things work, she says, trying to keep her voice casual. Mistakes get fixed. My father knows people, that is all. For most people, the judge answers, mistakes result in fines, higher insurance, sometimes worse. For you, they result in vanished records. He lets the words sit. But this is not only about what vanished, it is about what stayed. He pulls out a smaller document, a printed transcription clipped to a report. June 12th, traffic stop for texting while driving. Officer Daniels, do you recall that encounter, Miss Preston? She shrugs. I get stopped all the time. I cannot remember every boring conversation with someone holding a ticket pad. In this case, Caprio says, the officer recorded audio. He did so legally under department policy to protect himself from exactly the kind of pressure your family has been known to apply. Caroline rolls her eyes. So he wanted attention. Congratulations to him. The judge does not respond. He presses a button instead. A faint hiss fills the speakers, then a younger version of Caroline's own voice slices through the air, clearer than any memory. I am late for my facial. Do you want a tip or a lawsuit? My father knows the mayor. A low murmur ripples through the benches. One man in a work jacket shakes his head. Another lets out a breath that sounds almost like a laugh, except there is no humor in it. Caprio pauses the playback after the single line. He does not need more. Officer Daniels did not record you because he wanted attention, he says quietly. He recorded you because he believed that one day someone would actually listen. Mitchell opens his mouth to speak, then closes it again. There's nothing to argue against a voice that came from his own client's throat. Caroline's hand drifts toward her phone, lying screen down on the table. For the first time since she walked in, she does not pick it up. The little glass rectangle looks suddenly small, a toy that cannot help her inside these four walls. We will review all of this before I decide anything, Judge Caprio says, sliding the transcript back into the folder. Do not worry, Miss Preston. This court moves at its own pace. It will take exactly as long as justice requires. The air in the courtroom feels heavier now, as if each new page in that folder adds invisible weight to the room. Caroline sits straighter than she feels, shoulders squared in an imitation of control she no longer has. Her lawyer leans in and whispers something about context and narrative, but the words bounce off her like rain on glass. Judge Caprio does not rush. He turns another page with the same care he might use on a fragile photograph. The citations alone were troubling, he says, more to the record than to anyone in particular. But then we requested supporting materials from your insurance provider. He lifts a few printed screenshots. Text bubbles march down the page in neat, accusing rows. They reported repeated complaints from employees who felt threatened by your calls and messages, he explains. Apparently you did not like the idea of higher premiums. He begins to read, one line at a time. Tell them my father will bury this company if they touch my rate. These people only understand fear. Money talks, the rest just beg. A low exhale ripples through the gallery, the sound people make when they want to react but know they should not. One woman in a faded blazer stares at Caroline with something that is not quite hatred and not quite pity. She has likely waited hours for her own traffic hearing. Hearing those words, she suddenly understands why this case is taking so long. Caroline's jaw tightens. Those are private messages, she says. You have no right to drag my personal frustrations into this. Everyone vents. Everyone vents, Caprio agrees. Not everyone weaponizes their family name in writing while pushing people who cannot answer back. He taps the page with a fingertip. These are not slips of the tongue. They are considered sentences you took time to send. The judge lets the implication linger, then sets the texts aside. The most concerning incident, however, did not happen in a phone call or online, he says. It happened in a parking lot outside Jefferson Square Mall. He retrieves another report, this one thinner but heavier with what it contains. You were approached by an officer while your car was parked in a space reserved for drivers with disabilities, he reads. The officer asked you to move. According to his statement and corroborated by a witness, you refused. Caroline lifts her chin. I was waiting for someone who was coming out. It was a few minutes. This is ridiculous. Caprio does not debate the length of her wait. Instead, he reads the single line highlighted at the bottom of the page. I am not moving. My time is worth more than your life. The sentence lands like a dropped stone into a still pond. No one gasps this time. No one murmurs. The silence is deeper than any noise. In the back row, a man with a worn jacket and a cane rests both hands on the handle a little tighter. His jaw works as if he is chewing on the memory, not the air. It is the same veteran from the report. His file does not say mayor or associate. It lists deployments, injuries, years. Caroline follows a few pairs of eyes and finally sees him. For 1 second, the courtroom disappears, and she is back in that parking lot, bathed in neon from the mall sign, annoyed, late, uncaring. She remembers a uniform, a suggestion, the automatic flare of anger at being told to move. She remembers her own laugh. Words have a strange lifespan, Miss Preston, Judge Caprio says softly. You thought that moment ended when you drove away. Yet here it is again, alive in this room, standing right behind you. He nods toward the veteran. Her shoulders hunch a fraction. I was stressed, she mutters. People say things I did not mean. He lifts a hand, and the sentence dies midway. For the first time since the hearing began, his voice slows to a measured, weary cadence. When I first put on this robe, he says, I promised myself to remember that every person in front of me is more than the worst thing they have said or done, that justice without compassion is just cold procedure. He lets that thought sit, then adds, even slower, but compassion has limits, and today the heart of this court is tired. The change in rhythm is jarring after the litany of evidence. The room, which had grown used to the rapid beats of revelation and rebuttal, now has to sit in the quiet. It is a deliberate pause, the kind that makes viewers shift closer to the screen rather than reach for another tab. There is one more voice we need to hear, he says at last, not mine, not yours. He presses a button on the small console beside his microphone. His. A soft hum, then a recording begins. It is not official testimony, not a statement given under oath, just a man speaking plainly into a phone. I forgave her that day, the veteran says, his voice steady, unpolished. I thought maybe she was just having a bad afternoon. But if you ask me whether she learned what respect costs, I cannot say yes. The playback ends. No music swells. No one moves. Caroline's hands, clasped tightly together, have gone bloodless at the knuckles. Her usual reflex, a cutting remark, a scoff, a roll of the eyes, does not arrive. She is staring at the table as if something important might be written there, some hidden exit from this version of herself. Miss Preston, Judge Caprio says after a beat, his voice still low, you have heard your words, and you have heard his. The next part depends on what you say now. For the first time since she walked through the heavy wooden doors, Caroline struggles to find language. Her throat feels tight, her mouth dry, her usual arsenal of phrases useless. She is not choosing between spa treatments or brunch spots now. She is being asked who she is when there is no one left to impress. I already told you, she manages at last. I did not mean it like that. This is being blown out of proportion. You are turning my life into some kind of spectacle for everyone to enjoy. She gestures vaguely toward the gallery and, by extension, the cameras. There's a tremor in the motion that betrays her. Judge Caprio sees it. So do the people watching at home. The performance is slipping, the mask cracking at the edges. Spectacle, he repeats, tasting the word. You believe you are the main event today. He tilts his head. You are not. The main event is the idea you represent. That hits a nerve. pride, that old reliable fuel, roars back. Her spine straightens, color flares in her cheeks. My family has supported this city for decades, she snaps. Campaigns, hospitals, museums. Without our donations, half the projects you praise would not exist. This court runs on people like us. No one in the gallery applauds. No one nods. She presses on anyway, needing to hear herself say it. You sit up there because we allow it. People like me built this place. People like me own this city. Her gaze hardens, pinning the judge as if he were a clerk behind a counter. You work for people like me. I own you. The words do not echo in the room. They just drop, heavy and wrong. Even Caroline seems to feel it this time, a fraction of a second too late. Judge Caprio does not answer immediately. He does not lecture or scold. He simply reaches for a small control on his desk and flicks a switch. For a heartbeat, there's only static. Then a new voice fills the speakers. It is not his voice. It is not quite hers either. It is a processed metallic whisper, stripped of human warmth. I own you. Each word is stretched, distorted, lingering just long enough to turn the sentence into something grotesque. The effect is electric. A few people in the gallery flinch. One woman's hand flies to her mouth. Caroline recoils as if the sound itself had reached out and grabbed her. Hearing her own declaration translated into something inhuman makes it impossible to pretend it was just a joke, just a figure of speech. That, Judge Caprio says when the playback stops, is what your belief sounds like when you remove the charm and the jewelry and the soft lighting. He taps the microphone gently. Owning people went out of fashion a long time ago, Miss Preston. It has no place in this courtroom, or in this century. Her bravado collapses, shoulders sag. For a moment she looks much younger than 22, like a child who has finally realized the adults are not going to laugh it off this time. You are correct about one thing, he continues. Your family's money has helped fund many things in this city, but taxes and donations buy buildings, not human beings. They do not purchase judges, officers, or the man with the cane in the back row who once wore a uniform so you could shout at him in a parking lot. He straightens the papers in front of him, the ritual gesture before a ruling. The energy in the room shifts. Exhibits have been shown. Voices have been heard. Now comes the part people in every corner of the internet wait for in these clips, the verdict. Here is what this court will do, he says. First, your license to drive within this state will be suspended for 30 days. During that time, you will not operate any motor vehicle. You will experience what it means to depend on others without treating them as disposable. Caroline's mouth falls open. Losing the car feels, to her, like losing air. All her carefully arranged routines, every assumption that she can be anywhere at any time, just took a direct hit. Second, for those same 30 days, you will perform community service at the city shelter that serves unhoused veterans. His gaze shifts briefly toward the man with the cane. You will prepare meals, you will clean, you will listen. You will show up on time and stay until your shift ends. Their time, he says pointedly, is worth at least as much as yours. A flush climbs from Caroline's collar to her ears. Embarrassment, fear, and something like disbelief mix on her face. She can already imagine the whispers, the photos, the captions, the girl who thought she owned the city, wiping tables in a plain shirt. Third, you will deliver a public apology, Caprio continues. It will be recorded in this courtroom and shared through our educational program. Not written by your father's attorney, not polished by a consultant. Your words, under oath, directed specifically to the workers, officers, and veterans you have dismissed. Mitchell shifts in his seat, but he does not rise. There's nothing to object to that would not make things worse. Fourth, you will attend a course on safe driving and empathy, the judge says. It includes sessions where families share what happens when cars meet bodies at the wrong speed or the wrong angle. You will not scroll through your phone in the back row. You will look at them. Caroline swallows hard. The mention of bodies and families connects the abstract idea of tickets to something she has never truly considered, real consequences. And finally, he says, you will pay a financial penalty in the amount of $50,000. The funds will be divided equally among 3 organizations: the Veterans Shelter where you will serve, a scholarship fund for students whose families could never dream of hiring your father's firm, and a legal aid group that defends people who do not have anyone to make calls on their behalf. The sum is large enough to sting even a wealthy family, not ruinous, but undeniable. A number that says clearly this was not just another minor expense to sign off on between brunch and an evening gala. "This is outrageous," Caroline whispers, voice shaking. "You are trying to destroy me." Judge Caprio's reply is soft, but there is steel in it. "No," he says, "this will not destroy you. It will destroy the version of you that believes other human beings exist to be owned, dismissed, or bought. What you build afterward, that is entirely up to you." He lets that hang in the air, then looks past her, directly into the lens of the courtroom camera. For a heartbeat, every viewer watching feels as if the judge has turned his attention specifically to them. "Ask yourself," his eyes seem to say, even if the words remain unspoken for the record, what would happen if someone played back the worst sentence you ever said when you thought no one important was listening? The gavel comes down with a single, clean strike. The case is over. But for Caroline Preston, and for anyone watching who has ever believed their comfort mattered more than another person's dignity, the real verdict will be delivered later. In 30 days of early mornings at the shelter, in uncomfortable apologies, in each silent moment when she chooses either to change or to pretend none of this mattered. Dramatization for storytelling and education, not legal advice or reporting.